to episode 85 of the Kolbe Cast. Our Life After Kolbe series continues as Stephen and I take a cross-country tour of vibrant Catholic student ministries on state and secular campuses. In the spirit of St. John Henry Newman, whom we encountered in last week's episode, these campus ministries are reaching out to students, giving them places to call home away from home in more ways than one, and accompanying them on their walk into adulthood. Our guests also address concerns families may have about public and secular colleges and the potential harmful effects on the faith life of the students attending them. They speak to the fear factor that is a common experience of many families at this juncture, and they offer suggestions for ways to identify dynamic Newman Centers as part of the college search. We're glad you're along for the ride. Hi there, I'm Bonnie, liturgical musician, popcorn and podcast fanatic, and Kolbe homeschooling mom to 4 lads and lasses of middle and high school age.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Our guests today are Mrs. Monica Conroe, a Kolbe mom, and Mr. Mark Knox from Texas A&M University, coming to talk to us today about life after Kolbe on a secular or private university campus. Welcome to the Kolbe Cast, guys.
Howdy.
Thank you for having us.
We're so glad to have you. We've been doing the series Life After Kolbe, considering various roads that students will take after they finish their Kolbe years, be that college or some other direction. Today, we'd like to turn our attention to the great things happening on campuses that are not Catholic universities and colleges. There are a lot of great things. I had no idea. So these two folks they're going to tell us all about it today.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with either Catholic centers or Newman Center, Monica?
My name's Monica Conroe. I have 7 children, happily married, cradle Catholic. My oldest child is 21 and my youngest is 2. We've been homeschooling since my oldest child was, the call came at 3.5 and I started at kindergarten. I'm also a youth minister. I've been a youth minister for about 20 years or so, which is, of course, another calling. And I've been able to see common struggles in teens, same struggles over the years, just different ways of expression. And so I have my 2 oldest are in college and they've both decided to go to Oregon State University. And we can talk about the whys later, I suppose. It's about an hour and 15 minutes south of where we live. We are obviously part of the Kolbe community. Love Kolbe.
Well, I'm Mark Knox. I am a class of 03 from Texas A&M University, and I went off on adventure trips and that sort of thing. I was thinking I was going to be an adventure guide and whatever else, and I was in seasonal work, and I got a call from the Pines Catholic Camp to go and do ministry there, and that's where I fell in love with ministry. From there, I went and did youth ministry in 3 different parishes in Texas and in Colorado for about 14 or so years. And then from there, I went and worked with Bishop Joseph Strickland in the Diocese of Tyler, Texas, and for about 3 years. And then from there, here to Texas A&M. I've now been here as the director of campus ministry for the last 4 years.
Great. We've got folks who can give us some good insights into this route after Kolbe. That's great. So there are a lot of reasons students have for going the state or secular route after Kolbe. Among them cost or program availability, location, things like that. So we thought we'd take a sort of a bird's eye view of Newman Centers and Catholic centers on these campuses and the great things that are going on, and many of them from ministry to residential life. We were hoping to have with us another Kolbe mom, Elise Athman, but unfortunately she couldn't make it today. She had some great experiences as a focus missionary and a student also on a state campus. So we'll hear from her. She was very kind to record her thoughts for us, so we will include that as well. We'll start actually with this very novel thing that I just can't get over, the idea of Catholic housing on a state school, which is part of Elise's experience at the University of Illinois. She lived in a dorm that is attached to the Newman Center. I think this is so interesting, and I'm wondering, that sounds great. I shared a dorm floor with, I don't know, 60 other girls when I went to school, and I'm thinking that would have been great. So there are a number of universities that offer Catholic housing. University of Illinois, like I mentioned, also the University of Nebraska and the University of North Dakota, among others. Here's more about the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign from Elise.
University of Illinois is really unique because it has a Newman Center that is also a dorm. And I think it is actually one of the largest Newman Centers in the whole country or world. I can't remember. But so Newman Hall is attached to St. John's Catholic Chapel. And it's a big, beautiful chapel with white marble. And the Newman Center itself hosts just tons of events. I always used to say that they served things on a silver platter, things you can pick and choose from, whatever you wanted to be involved with in the church there. They have koinonia retreats. They have, well, of course, focus missionaries that lead Bible studies. And I should have mentioned that earlier about focus. That is one of the other primary things that they do is lead Bible studies. And the Newman Center provides just all different service opportunities. I was able to go to Haiti on an immersion trip when I lived at Newman. I was able to go to Mississippi on a service trip. I was involved with Focus. I was able to go to Mass there every day, just get really involved. And so that was really important to my college life. So that was another thing that I really appreciated. The St. John's Catholic Chapel, which is attached literally to the Newman Center dorms, they offered at the time 3 masses a day and confessions every day and several masses on the weekends with different choirs for every mass. And this is on a secular campus. Newman Hall is right there in the middle of campus, and so you can't miss it. I always said it was like a Catholic Camelot in the middle of everything. So you have this Big Ten university that offers so many wonderful things, but is very liberal in a lot of ways in their classes. But then you have the support of so many amazing Catholic priests and nuns and other students that really do allow you to remain and practice your Catholic faith on that state campus. So that was my experience with the Newman Center there. It really was a wonderful thing.
That just sounds amazing. Are either of you familiar with this great concept of Newman housing or Catholic living on a state or secular campus?
I would affirm the need is there. We actually have quite a few students that do live together. They are making their own arrangements to make sure that they are living with Catholic friends, and they'll create little households. They'll have their own little names. But I do wish that we did have, our own dorm or something like that. I think there are some complications of like what happens if a student gets drunk, on campus, or somebody's caught sleeping together, that could always be kind of a scandalous thing. And so we've kind of moved away from actually going into that, plus all the work it takes to manage that type of house. But there's definitely a need that I see, when it can be done really well, it can be very beneficial and life-changing for those who get to participate in that.
Yeah. At Oregon State, they don't have dorms, what you were describing, like 60 people in a house, but they do what Mark was saying was households. And the Newman Center really oversees that if you want to participate in the households, where you have a mentor for your household, and then you're encouraged to, meal plan together and budget together and meet so many times a week to pray together. And they do the names. They all have to do with Cardinal Newman.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
And yeah, but they choose to do it. Some people don't choose to do the household route, and that's okay. But a lot of times it's really just like you gather some female friends or male friends from the Newman Center, get together. You either find a house or a house is given to you. You still pay rent, but at a reasonable rate. And then, yeah, you live together. And it's a learning experience, as we all know, living with other people and learning how to budget and meal plan, especially for the young men. They have to, learn how to cook and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a good experience for my kids anyway. to be in households.
These housing arrangements sound really interesting and really ideal. All the different ways that folks can enter into community that's so necessary. That is very heartening to hear. There are other great things happening on state and secular campuses, including a partnership between Arizona State and the University of Mary, to which we'll link in our show notes, and all kinds of opportunities for small groups, service, ongoing catechesis and formation, intramural athletics, all sorts of things happening. So we'd love to hear about your own experiences, though, and your insights into life in this season. So, Monica, would you tell us a bit about your family story and experience, especially at Oregon State?
Yeah. Well, with 7 kids, you really hope that you don't mess up with the first one. And so poor child is the guinea pig. But we're blessed that she was really motivated to really find a university that was close to home. But she really wanted the Catholic identity part, but she didn't want to incur the ridiculous amount of loans that usually happens at private colleges. So we looked at 3 things: distance, and so we looked at the closest Catholic universities around us that fit her. But the sad thing was that the Catholic identity wasn't as strong as what she wanted. And then, of course, the financial issue. So we had heard a lot about the Newman Center at Oregon State. And, it's really hard when people go, oh, it's really great. It's wonderful. You got to try it out. You got to go check it out. But, until you're actually there and you go, okay, I probably should check this out, because we're kind of out of options, because most really good Catholic colleges are, you have to take a plane, and you put that into the equation of how much things cost, flying kids back and forth during holidays or birthdays or whatever, and it's really expensive. So we were kind of forced to look at Oregon State and talk to people. And I would say that would be a really important thing, is to talk to people who have been there and have experienced the culture. So we did that, and then we went to visit it, and it was very impressive. The St. John Society priests, who are based in Argentina, were brought up several years ago to really manage the Oregon State Newman Center, and they have brought such holiness to that place of secularism that it is really infectious. They've developed a format, and it's taken a while to do this, but they've developed a format that is really well done. And so we finally decided on it, because even though she did get merit-based scholarships with the Catholic universities that she applied to, that she really wanted to go to, it still was kind of outrageous to, when you add 4 years to that, and then any other expenses that we would incur. So she ended up getting scholarships, merit-based scholarship. So when we factored in the fact that if she would go to Oregon State, and she would be able to have the scholarships that were merit-based, because with private schools, when we were looking at Catholic universities, because we couldn't get need-based scholarships, it just wasn't doable. When we have 7 children, we do give our kids some money for college, but we don't cover it all, because they have to put some elbow grease into their education. And so she had to kind of figure out, like, okay, what am I willing to do? So that's what kind of motivated her to really apply for a lot of scholarships that were just kind of randomly around. And so, yeah, so she got in. And the great thing about what the Newman Center there does is they have a retreat right off the bat for incoming freshmen, and really try to, they do a really good job with Welcome Week, first of all. My daughter says that some of her friends are there because of Welcome Week. Every day they have something available that's fun and inviting, welcoming, and they have volunteer missionaries that really are infectious. They're there to just be missionaries, and they've given a year of their life to just share the good news. And so they welcome people at Welcome Week, and she was really impressed with some of the welcoming that happened.
Sure. Sure. That sounds very effective at hospitality. That's great.
Hospitality is huge, yeah. And food too. Food is important for college kids. Um, but so they have the volunteer missionary program, which is impressive in itself to look up to people who, and they're mostly, like 20s, in their early 20s. So knowing that they gave their a year of their life to this service is really, really wonderful. And then the Newman Center also has formation. So once they come into the freshman retreat, which of course is great, they come out of that retreat just really ingrained in the community and just really owning their own faith, because that's what you have to do in college, right? And then they start them out with a program called Venture. They have an Alpha program. So they have a formation set up. It seems very organized. So people that don't go through Venture go through Alpha. And then they have for the following year, I think like sophomore, junior year, they have what's called Fragua. So it's just like entering in a lot deeper. And then they have what's called Omega for your senior year that prepares you to embark on your life. They have fun activities, of course, where you get together and play soccer, basketball. They have barbecues, bowling, hikes, different things like that. And then also part of formation is they have Newman lectures. So they once a month or every other month or something, they have a speaker come in and speak about something. And then, of course, they have retreats. They have masses twice a week and in the evenings. And then I know they have confession and also adoration, Bible studies. And then another thing that they have done, which has been super helpful for my kids, is a mentoring program. So they have the student partner with one of the volunteer missionaries as their mentor, and they meet once a week or every other week or something like that.
But that regularity sounds
Yeah,
good, that they can count on it. That's
yeah.
great.
And they are definitely challenged in their faith. I think that's really important. It's really amazing when you walk into your child's room and you see a rosary hanging on their bedpost.
Yeah.
They also have events. There's a lot of support, monetary support for this Newman Center. Then they're able to rent a charter bus, and drive down to Walk for Life West Coast in January. And that's a really fun event, and not fun also, but I mean, it is fun, but at the same time purposeful. And they have a pilgrimage walk, which is also really impressive. They do like a 3-day walk Memorial weekend. They walk from Salem to Portland, and they end at the grotto. And yeah, like we're talking blistered feet, walking, I don't know, at least 8 hours a day, if not 12.
Wow.
And then at the end, they have mass, and it is just inspiring to see all of these young people really just owning up to their faith. Like they have their music people who just play just beautiful music, makes you cry. And we're in the chapel at the grotto in Portland, and it's just echoing with beautiful voices. And if you look around, no one's really looking at each other. They're seriously kneeling and bending before the Lord. It's just really amazing. Yeah, and so St. John Society has done a really great job. I mean, holiness is infectious, so they're holy men who have really done a wonderful job of centering Christ in the life of these young people. There is also religious sisters. They're also a presence as well, and so much so that they're starting to spread. So the St. John Society Newman Center are sending volunteer missionaries to try to spread the goodness, Washington, D.C., and also up north at Portland State. So they're doing really great things, and it's really beautiful to actually see your child. You walk with them for so many years, and you hope, right? Like I'm a firm believer in that we're raising adults and saints, so you hope for that, right?
Yep.
And at some point, you have to let them go, and they have to make the choice themselves.
Mhm.
One thing also I would say about going to a public school, Newman Center, is the importance of having to choose it. They have to choose to participate, and that's kind of the nervous thing about, a parent sending your kids there, because you send them to a Catholic university, you're like, okay, their environment is complete. I mean, they still have choices, right? But their environment, I don't have to worry too much. But at a public school, you kind of have to go, all right, I trust and I pray that you choose to go to Mass, at least on Sundays, that you go to adoration, and it's where you see the fruition of the efforts that, like all those hard times when you drag them to Mass, and you called family prayer together, even though people were moaning. It just kind of is really neat to see the kids really take on their own relationship with God.
It sure sounds like that. They work hard there to provide all kinds of opportunities for students to join the community, to be a part of something, to meet people, which is so much of the what I was looking for when I went to school, right? Is looking to meet people and belong somewhere. And they provide all kinds of ways to make that happen and get them involved and keep them there. That's great.
Right. Well, I think the struggle with going to a public university is that, just like in any place you go, your desire is to find a community that you feel validated, or that you feel comfortable being who you are.
Hmm.
And that's the struggle that a lot of people have just in general. And so you go to a public university where 95% of it is pretty secular, and so you kind of are, in a way, like, where do I fit in? Well, I gotta go. I either go find a community, or I'm a loner. Like,
Hmm.
I'm just gonna go do the class thing, go home, and not have a community.
Sure. Yeah.
But what I think the Newman Center, not just this one, but I'm sure what Mark has to share as well, is providing that ready-made community where you feel safe and validated, and you can feel enriched in your life, and you're able to move forward in developing who you are, and learning how to flourish as God's gift.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like a great place to be, Oregon State. Mark, we hear lots of good things about St. Mary's Catholic Center at Texas A&M University. It was one of the top universities mentioned in an article that we will link in our show notes, the top 50 best college Newman Centers from April of 2021. We're going to link that in our notes. Let's hear about St. Mary's Catholic Center in College Station, Texas.
Sure, yeah. Texas A&M and Texas in general is still relatively religious. When the students here at A&M were surveyed, 75% said that they still believed in God in some capacity. I think around 50% consider themselves religious, and so there's a great freedom to be able to practice your faith at A&M. On the Protestant side, there's an event called Breakaway, and they have this extraordinary event on campus, and there's about 2,000 students every week that are going to the Reed Arena, the basketball stadium, and filling it for their non-denominational services. And then on the Catholic side, we would roughly say there's 17,000 Aggie Catholics.
Yeah. Wow.
We only see right now, post-COVID, we've been seeing roughly around 3,000 of them.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, our mass attendance was around 4,000 to 5,000.
Wow.
Right now, we're about 2,500 to 3,000 on the weekend, which is a great number, but it shows a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So folks may recognize St. Mary's Catholic Center as the origin of the 40 Days for Life campaign, which we are recording this in the month of October. And that is happening here in my area and probably around the United States as well, I would assume. So that started at Texas A&M, right?
Absolutely. You know, Abby Johnson was in Bryan, Texas when that was all going down. I still remember as a student in class of 03, the Knights of Columbus here were very, very strong and always promoting, you know, let's go pray in front of the abortion clinic. Let's go pray in front of the abortion clinic. They did signups and students went in droves to go pray. And because of that, you know, those students, their presence, their prayerful love for every human person that was walking up for those procedures, you know, that's what changed the hearts of Abby and what got that movement started. And that Planned Parenthood space ended up shutting down, and that's now the office for 40 Days for Life.
Wow.
I was kind of struck with Monica's account of kind of students coming in and how they're really kind of brought into the community. And, you know, I was thinking, I went to a Catholic school, which was wonderful. And I really loved that time. But even there, it would be when you come in, you'd have to be a little careful, because my experience has always been, coming from public school or even in a Catholic school, that it's often the people who might not be living the best lives that are sometimes the first ones to reach out and try to, like, hey, let's go drinking, let's go do this, let's go do that. So I was impressed that there's that reaching out and the activities because again, even though I was at a Catholic school, the weekend would come around and it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do? A lot of people, underage people, going off drinking or not doing the things that they necessarily should be doing. So Mark, could you maybe tell us a little bit about how that works at Texas A&M?
Sure. Yeah, we began collecting data on incoming freshmen all throughout the entire year. So right now, we actually have a database with about 40 or so freshmen that are going to be coming next year. And we continue to collect that data. We allow them to put their information in. And over the course of the summer, we began putting them into small groups. We have a team of around 150 upperclassmen that are preparing throughout the entire year. When we get summer, they're automatically putting these students into groups. We'll take the Newman collection list. We'll take students that are at new student conferences that say they want information. We'll take all these and we'll compile a giant database. This past year, we got about 800 freshmen in our database that were going to be here. And so we put them in small groups and we put on a 2-day retreat during Howdy Week. It's the week before school starts. And normally that Sunday before, that's when all the students move in. And we have an event every single night of the week. Mm-hmm. These groups are doing events on campus, in their dorms, around their dorms. We put them in small groups with their dorms. And it's one of the funniest things is when they show up to the Connect retreat, they're like, hey, you're in my dorm. Yeah. We're in the same small group. And it's like, oh, yeah, we did that on purpose, you know? But the great thing is at the end of that 2 days, there's usually about 400 or so freshmen that go on the Connect retreat. It's all student run. So there's about 150 or so sophomores, juniors, seniors that are small group leaders, household leaders, and exec team. They're putting on skits and they're doing talks and all that. It's all student led, the whole thing. And we have one advisor, one of our campus ministers is advising that organization that does that. But it's a great way to just welcome the freshmen, get them involved. We do welcome packet pickup. We have like this whole free t-shirt and all this stuff. We handed about 900 t-shirts to freshmen this year, which is extraordinary.
Yeah. How big is the student population now? I was thinking it was significant.
It's a huge school. That's one of the reasons why our numbers are so big. You know, there's about 70,000 students at A&M. There's also Blinn College, which is a small community college. It's about a quarter or a half the cost of A&M. And I want to say the enrollment there is about maybe 3,000 to 5,000. And then we just opened up a Rellis campus that's right outside of town. And that's more of a trade school type thing. And cool. I'm not sure what the enrollment of the Rellis campus is, but it's just now started and it's getting bigger for those who don't want a 4-year education, but they want to come grow in a particular skill. They can go to school at the Rellis campus for, a fraction of the cost of
Fantastic.
A&M 4-year degree.
That's neat. Well, certainly in a school that size, I went to a big state school. It's not that big, but in a big state school, that is the name of the game, right? Is finding a place to belong, and certainly all the things you work toward. I'm thinking, we get a lot of email from College Board right now for our students who are nearing the end of high school, so they're already kind of looking at different colleges and getting communications from them. And I'm so glad to hear that it's also coming from you and your colleagues at university centers around the country, that students who are looking at discerning where to head after Kolbe will have a place, someone like a face, a name, someone to talk to, that they have a contact, not just be contemplating this giant school that they're going to go to, that they have an actual connection there. That's great. It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
One of the things on that Connect Retreat is once we get their contact information, have them in a group, it's broken down so that a small group leader has 10 students or less that they're working with, and they'll start doing their outreach throughout the summer, particularly the beginning of August. So when they show up to the campus, they've already got a connection of about 8 or so other students,
Right.
and a current student that has been kind of walking and talking with them the last, few weeks.
Fantastic.
Living in Oregon, it's a very difficult place to be Catholic.
Mhm.
And so it's been helpful to have this place close by, which I'm guessing can be in other places as well, that are not like strongly Christian Catholic lands.
Mhm.
And it's just really hard. And so one of the benefits of and this is because I've just seen it, right? And I see it in high schoolers as well. But one of the, I don't know if benefits or outcomes of going to more of a public school in college is that you have to make that decision about who you are, right? Like here in a very secular state, it's really hard being Catholic. We fight against a lot of things. And so you go to college and it's like you feel like you're once again fighting, but you are forced to say, who am I? Who am I? Because it's integral into forming who you are. Is looking at yourself and going, who am I? Am I? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to figure that out. And it just forces you to ask that question. And I think, like I've seen sometimes, when you're in your Catholic environment where it's quite safe, you don't have to ask that question. You just kind of accept that that's who you are, and the challenge doesn't kind of force you up into um, uh, taking a look at yourself and challenging yourself in faith. That I think has also been a really beautiful thing to see. Anyway, I just wanted to add that piece.
I used to teach high school chemistry and physics online, and I had a couple of students of mine that went to Texas A&M, as a matter of fact. They graduated, but I was talking with one of them a year or two after they graduated, and he was just telling me about not only the wonderful Catholic experience that he had kind of personally, but also the outreach he was able to participate in at the secular things, in particular, like talking to other male students about the dangers and the harm of pornography and all of these things. So, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that, Mark?
Sure, yeah. Evangelization really is the heart of what we do. There's two folds. There's both the receiving, receiving the word, and then also being able to transmit the word. We do a great job forming our freshmen in John 15. It's a giant organization, about 400 freshmen. They go through that, a weekly thing every single week. But then the leaders of that are learning the skills of, how do I lead a small group? How do I lead an organization? How do I give talks? That sort of thing, right? So it's all this formation piece of taking ownership in the faith. And then how do they live that out? How do they take that to campus? And that's a way that we form them in particular. I'll give you a really good example of what that looks like is right before the Alabama-Texas A&M game, we actually had a Eucharistic procession where we had an event called Magnify. There were about 800 freshmen that came in. We had the CFRs present. They gave a short talk. And then we took Jesus on the A&M campus.
Wow.
The whole behind the scenes work is we took about maybe 50 or so of our student leaders, and we did a formation for them on what it looks like to evangelize in front of this Eucharistic procession. And so I was out there with my staff, and we equipped them with some flyers and some language, some tools on how to approach people. And so we're sitting here bringing Jesus through Northgate, the drinking district, the bar district. And we have freshmen, we have sophomores, we have juniors, we have upperclassmen walking up to guys at the bar, having a conversation with them, starting out with, you got to be curious on what you're seeing, right?
Right.
Yeah. What's happening?
What are you doing?
No lie. There are two guys that were getting out of their truck that jumped in with our procession. Instead of going to the bar, they jumped in and they did the whole procession for the next 2 hours with us.
Wow.
We're crossing the street. Police are blocking University Drive, four or five lanes of traffic, and we're bringing Jesus across. One guy gets out of his truck, is kneeling in University Drive, watching the procession, while the rest of our upperclassmen are walking up to cars, walking up to people they're seeing, and having conversation at these stopped cars of like, this is what's happening. We're walking through campus, and we handed out about 400 flyers and visited with random strangers that were having Bible studies on campus, that were having scavenger hunts, and just constantly talking. I was so proud to watch our upperclassmen just have these natural conversations with strangers. I ran into a core guy who hadn't been to Mass in the last 2 years or so, and we grabbed lunch the next day and just talked about faith, and just the opportunities that were presented there were absolutely beautiful. And that's one of the missions is, sometimes we think that the church has a mission, and we lose the fact that the church is a mission. And we're in a decline. I mean, I don't know if you know the numbers, but we're seeing in 2 years, we have millennials, their children will be here at Texas A&M. Millennials are practicing roughly around 36% in their Catholic faith. And so in the next 2 years, we're going to see a decline in just Catholic population. And we've got to be doing more than just, offering programs and waiting for people to come to us. We have to be forming our students to go out into the world and to proclaim the gospel where other people are.
I almost had to throw in an amen there. That was great.
That's right. It's very compelling. Yeah. It's quite stirring. I can tell your enthusiasm and your devotion, how that draws people in. And what I've heard over and over in this conversation is the idea of connection and belonging. And Elise, who couldn't join us today, recorded her thoughts on her experience as a focused missionary, working toward this same end of building connections among the students and evangelizing and bringing them to Christ. So here are her thoughts on that.
At Montana State University, I was a focused missionary there. So it wasn't exactly a Newman Center, but they're trying to kind of make it into that a little bit more. If anyone has an opportunity to get their kids plugged into any focus missionaries at their universities, whether it's a secular university or it's a private Catholic school, I would say that is going to be really beneficial. Those missionaries are trained to win over young people for Christ and to bring them closer to their faith. And I know that on a college campus that can be really challenging. But where parents maybe aren't as influential as they'd like to be sometimes, or as we would hope they would be, young adults are really attractive to other young adults, especially coming in and trying new things. So you have these just graduated or recently graduated young adults who love their faith and are on fire for their faith and will go pray rosaries, go to daily mass, but then they'll also go out dancing or, have a beer together, something like that college students can relate to. So I think that's one thing about Focus, that it's solid It's Orthodox. It's an Orthodox program. The missionaries are trained by some amazing professors, and it's just a solid program. You know you're going to get good stuff if they're being mentored by the missionaries. And the way that they do that is through small and large group events and one-on-one mentorship. They basically take students under their wing and they see leaders in those students and they train them to be leaders in their faith. And it's part of spiritual multiplication. And then those students will take somebody else under their wing, and that's just kind of how it works. So it really is an amazing way of evangelizing. So a lot of students might even go on to become focus missionaries because it really made an impact on their lives. So that's, I guess, the really, really quick description of focus, and there's so much more to it.
Both of you have spoken so eloquently and enthusiastically and compellingly about the experiences you've had ministering to Catholics on campuses and sending your children to campuses and trusting them to the care of ministers at those campuses. We tend to hear the negative things, so it's great to hear these positive things that are happening. Do you have any final thoughts, Mark, as a campus minister, that you would offer to parents and students who are concerned about a state or secular school and the potential detrimental effects on the faith life of their students attending one of those schools? What would you say to them?
I would say that there has to be an element of trust, like there has to be an element of trust and just letting go, and that the Lord is there. There does need to be good opportunities that are offered. Like I wouldn't send my kid to a secular school that doesn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
St. Mary's, we have daily mass twice a day, every day of the week, and there's about 400 students that go every day to daily mass.
Wow.
That doesn't happen at every school. And so I would definitely be cautious to make sure that there are opportunities for adoration, that there are regular opportunities for confession. And at that, sometimes you just have to let go and trust that the Lord will do his work, and pray for your children that the right people will find them and engage them, and that they,
Mm-hmm. It's not all on you. That's right. It's on the parents. Sometimes we get in that fallacy, like it's all on me to find this for them and do this for them. It's not. It's not. This is a good reminder of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
well, yeah. One thing I could say on that too is that there's a lot of parents that will contact us and be like, will you call my kid? Will you get them to go to mass? And it's like,
Oh.
at this point, like it's in their hands. We can do our part to let them know we're here, but most likely they know we're here. There's just an element
Mm-hmm.
for them that they have to choose it.
And it sounds so wonderful. I mean, because the first thing that jumps to mind is like, okay, sending my child to a public university means that they're not going to get the Catholic formal formation as part of the curriculum. But I love how, and both of what you've talked about, that extra formation is given outside of the curriculum, but it's there as long as they're willing to kind of reach out and participate in that. And you guys are reaching out to, or Mark, you guys are reaching out to them as well. So it's not just a one-sided thing, but it's there.
Well, and I would also say about the curriculum, obviously it's not Catholic or Christian in its essence, but it's also important that we all learn at some point to think critically about information that is given to us. And at that point in their lives, they probably should be thinking in a critical way. So in a way, I feel okay about putting my kids in that situation where it's like, okay, I've done my best to help you learn how to think critically about things. So here's your chance and to do well and to excel in areas of faith within the secular culture, because obviously at some point we're all going to have to be in that world, if you will.
At least here at Kolbe, we'd like to think that this curriculum, this formation through Kolbe, is setting you up well to kind of make that next step too. So hopefully that's your experience.
Right. I also wanted to echo what Mark was saying about trusting your children and trusting in the Lord. It's a hard part of being a parent, but at the same time, we've done our part, and it's now our time to pray like heck, man. Like just pray and trust and be there when your kids struggle, and they need to struggle in different ways, and that's okay. We all need to struggle because that's how we grow in our faith. So maybe they do need to fall a few times in college, and that's all right. We pray for them, be there for them, love them, and then trust and pray that, like Mark said, that there are other people that will be put into their lives to help pick them up, and pray for them as well, and walk alongside them when we're not there.
One thing I could say to that too is that one of the coolest things is to see how many confirmation students we have coming in. They were in high school, they refused to get confirmation, or their parents didn't take them. And, there was somewhere along the line and back in the day that they just didn't, it wasn't there for them. They didn't have the relationship with Jesus. They weren't ready to commit. And now they're in college, they're choosing it for themselves. And there's a very deep conviction that they have. And they're going through the RCIA process that we have. We have about 30 a semester going through just to get confirmed because they missed it. But now there's this deep conviction, and going through that process of RCIA and being formed in such a wonderful way, they come out of that ready to go. I mean, they're lit on fire, ready to proclaim the gospel and invite others in. And they can share now a story of being away and then coming back. And so, for some reason, their kids are struggling in the faith right now, and it feels like, oh, now's the time and I've got to do it now, or it's never going to happen, to just kind of let go of some of that fear and hopefully put them in the hands of the Lord. Just love them well. And if there's an opportunity to come back to the church, if the Lord wills that, and they find their place back at home in the church, there's going to be an even deeper conviction than they had earlier in their life.
And a consolation for me is always knowing that that God loves them more than I love them, and so He would never, He would never abandon them. And so my prayer is always united with God's. So having said that, like, even if they don't choose the Newman Center, and maybe they're, Mark said, we let go, and it happens when they're 50, like that is part of their walk. And sometimes having, like Mark was saying, that contrast of like being without God versus a life with God, and being able to see both sides of that really propels you into a life with God even more so than if you had him all along. I mean, at some point we all have to have our internal conversion, but I'm just saying, like, that contrast makes it compelling.
Much consolation and reassurance to families who could quite possibly be in that place of fear, of quite fearful about what is to come and what might happen. Well, it sounds like there are so many great things happening. I've heard you mention a number of things that kind of tip me off to ways of knowing that these campus ministry programs, you all both know, are alive. The frequency of the sacraments, the liturgical celebrations, the vibrant life that you cultivate from the get-go, from before students arrive on campus. Are there other ways that families might be able to identify if a school has a vibrant campus ministry or Newman program as they're contemplating these various schools?
Like I said earlier, like, I think word of mouth is huge. I would just talk to people who've been there. Well, the school that I went to did not have a very well-formed Newman Center, and it'd be helpful to know that. And the way has been paved in some places, but like Mark said, I mean, you have to tread carefully and choose if you're going to go the secular school route, that you discern that well and look at the pros and cons of the school and go visit, see what it's like, if you can go for a week, but who has that time? But just kind of experience the life of the Newman Center.
I'd begin with just talking to your kids and, seeing what it is that they're looking for in college, what kind of campus ministry that they would want, and then when you're starting to look at schools to see, is this a school I could potentially go to? Make sure you include a visit and, walk through the student center, see what they have, what programs they have, scour the website, make sure that there are Bible studies and other things like that. Focused missionaries are always really great on campuses. We have 9 here at St. Mary's. Do they have any religious sisters? Do they do spiritual direction? We have 3 religious sisters, 3 priests here. We have 5 campus ministers, so there's a lot of resources that are being poured in. Is the campus ministry you're looking at, are they pouring in resources? Do they have the resources to meet the needs? There's a lot of campuses that only have 1 or 2 campus ministers, and that's it. And it's in the most beneficial setting, you would actually be in a situation where your child is being discipled by someone. And discipleship is incredibly inefficient. Like one-to-one ministry is very, very inefficient, but it is the deepest. And so finding, are there opportunities like SPO, St. Paul's Outreach, where they have households or they're investing in dorms? Do they have focus that do discipleship, or enough campus ministers and programs and organizations that, your student could get one-on-one attention? That's what I would be looking for the most. And when you go visit, does a mass, does a homily, does a music, can you see yourself there? Because that's really going to be the ultimate decision, is when a student walks in and they go to mass there and you're like, do you see yourself here? Well, no, like all the people look like nerds or they didn't look like me. It didn't feel like a place that I would fit. Okay, well, then we need to, at least look other places and not to settle, if you can avoid it. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes finances get in the way and you can't help but just go somewhere and hope it works out.
All this is really underscoring that the necessity of putting a close look at the campus ministry of any school in contemplation at the very top of the list among the other priorities with, the program we're looking at and location and cost and all those. It's definitely a high priority. Is there anything else that we've missed?
I would say one more thing that would be vital to be looking for when you're choosing a campus ministry: how many vocations come out of there?
Yeah.
That's a really good number. And if you stop in for adoration, how many people are there at adoration? Mm-hmm. Here at St. Mary's, we have about 15. If you walk in the adoration chapel right now, you're going to see 10 to 15 students there.
Wow. In
our discernment, we normally have about 8 go into religious life every year.
Fantastic.
Those are our numbers. Now, we have a big school, but if you're asking if they've had any vocations, and they're like, not in the last 10 years, you might want to think twice about, whether you're going to send your kid there.
That's a really good point. Oregon State Newman Center definitely has vocations coming out of it. It's very evident of the infectious holiness and how they direct people to answer the call.
Well, we will be sure to link both of these campus ministry locations, St. Mary's Catholic Center and the Newman Center at Oregon State, in the show notes today, along with this article we referenced earlier, the 50 Best College Newman Centers, and some other information that we've collected about Newman Centers and campus ministry. Monica and Mark, we sure appreciate your time today. We thank Elise for her thoughts as well, and we're sorry she couldn't join us today. We sure appreciate her contributions to this conversation. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, Mark. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Kolbe Cast in your favorite podcast app to make sure you don't miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.